Welcome to Trailer Geeks and Teaser Gods. I'm your host, Corey Nathan. This is the show where we get to speak with the brilliant, creative minds behind the greatest coming attractions, movie posters, and digital campaigns of all time. We're grateful to our sponsors, the Golden Trailer Awards and Mesa Wealth Management. That's our newest title sponsor. Their support truly helps us do what we do so we can bring these conversations to you. Today's episode is a best of. One of those conversations that really holds up, whether you're hearing it for the first time or revisiting it. And with that, let's drop back into the moment right where the conversation begins. And I'm so glad to be joined today by not just any trailer editor, but arguably one of the greatest trailer editors of all time. And I know my guest is not going to like me saying that. He's just not that kind of dude. But, he grew up in this industry at the legendary Intralink film, which we'll talk about today. He's been at Buddha Jones for almost 7 years. Our guest today is Robert Walker. Robert, thanks so much for doing this. How you doing?
I'm doing fine, other than blushing and cringing.
You do it.
Intro, but I will, pretend I'm in with a client and have to swallow my feelings. So anyway,
So glad I could do that for you. I told you before I hit record that you wouldn't like my intro. So, but it must be said because it's true, man. It's not like bullshit. It's totally true. So I thought a good way to start, I've sort of told versions of this story as I vaguely remembered it. We've talked about this a couple times, how when you were growing up, you were already editing, even if you didn't know the word for it, or that's what you were doing, like literally cutting and pasting cassette tapes and making collages and doing the things that make you such an interesting, engaged, great editor. So could you clear up the story? Tell us a little bit more about that. Just, like I said, I'm sure I've messed up the story along the way.
Well, yeah, the formative experiences that made me probably become an editor were when I was young. I saw this Nicholas Roeg movie, Walkabout, which had this amazing opening, which is sound design and slightly nonlinear and impressionistic. I was like, what is this? And then as a little kid, I got from the library a experimental electronic record by Stockhausen, which was like all these crazy sounds called Contact, which just blew my mind. And I became obsessed with like putting sounds together and the fact that images could be, sort of reordered. And so, yeah, I used to do little tape collages with cassettes. I used to do collages, big abstract ones. I'd also take tracing paper and trace images from different places together.
Mm-hmm. How did you learn about like such abstract music and sound and films, and how did you learn about that? Like, how did you know he was even there, let alone how to access it?
Yeah, well, I mean, the library was a great source. So once heard this crazy electronic music, then I started going down the wormhole. And I grew up in Berkeley in the Bay Area, but was always this sort of hotbed of experimental music and art, and you had all these Mills College had experimental music, and so there was always concerts playing and things like that. And obviously the sort of trailers are so sound design oriented and music oriented, and they're also sort of non-linear and cut up.
Yeah.
So I became rather obsessed with that stuff. And and then later I got interested in writers like William Burroughs and Brian Geisen and Kathy Acker, who would use cut-up method and cut up texts or take texts from other writers and incorporate them in their work. And then I remember hearing Grandmaster Flash and the Wheels of Steel and Early Public Enemy and all these other people who were doing sampling. And I got an early sampler and started
wow.
my own electronic music. So at the same time, obsessed with films, going to see films all the time, there was a little theater which had 4 screens, which would show revival movies, and they would let me skip from theater to theater to theater.
Oh, wow. That's
So
cool.
I wouldn't even know what the movies were sometimes. It'd be like Metropolis, and then go over and see Up in Smoke, and then go and see Roman Polanski's The Tenant, whatever. Um, so when trailers really were this converging of these worlds of um, kind of nonlinearity, cutting things apart, and movies,
Mhm.
and I also loving popular music, this kind of short form uh, approach. Because for a while I thought, oh, maybe I want to be a feature editor, and no, I wanted much more ability to um, do something short, punchy, and also have a lot more creative freedom, and be very, very music and sound design driven.
So you had a sense pretty early on that the trailer form was something that you were drawn to.
I mean, I would not as a kid, I didn't really know, like most people who probably come on the podcast, that trailer editing was quite a thing.
Yeah.
Although I do remember seeing the trailer for Rumblefish.
Oh,
It has this amazing montage in the back end, um, and uh, thinking, "Wow, that's really interesting."
yeah.
So I knew I wanted to be in movies, and then when I was in high school, I took a intensive summer film program, and in that I first did editing, and I also did some sound design, and I was like, I either want to be an editor or a sound designer. So I knew that before I went to college. That was
Okay. Where did you go to school?
so I went to Pitzer College, one of the Claremont colleges, which
Okay.
didn't have much of a film program. So I took additional classes at the California College of Arts and Crafts and kind of stitched together that and a film major as well as a psychology major.
Oh, that's interesting. Where does
Well,
the psychology come in? Because it sounds like your youth was spent in, these art house movie theaters and, listening to, eccentric music and, and then, but psychology, how did that fit in?
well, Pitzer College was very strong in the social sciences and had really great professors, and I got really excited by
Okay.
psychology. I knew it wasn't where I wanted my profession to go,
Yeah, yeah,
but
yeah.
while I was picking up one degree, I took enough classes. I was like, yeah, I'll finish up this other one. And of course, um, psychology is helpful in this industry.
Oh,
So
absolutely. I mean, yeah, I mean, we were talking before we hit record about the legendary Anthony, Anthony Goldschmidt, but he quite a character. But not just Anthony. I mean, the industry's filled with all kinds of characters, if you will. So, so what was your? So you were kind of piecing together a course load in college because you had this sense of what you were drawn to, and you were kind of making sense of it throughout your college years.
yes, very much so. And so I was pulling it together, but still with this goal of editing or sound design. So when I came out of college, um, I started talking to people who were in the industry. I was like, should I go to like a film school, get a graduate degree? And I talked to this sound designer, Randy Tom, who was up at Lucasfilm, and he was like, well, maybe just take some specialized classes. So I went to UCLA Extension, and
Oh,
that was great because they had people who actually worked in the industry teaching. And I took a class called The Role of the Apprentice and Assistant Film Editor. And the first day of class, he had everyone pick up big film canisters and move them from one side of the room to the other. And he said, this is what your first job is going to be.
that is perfect.
It
I
was
love
amazing.
that.
He would teach you things like, so if you're an assistant editor, the first day you should ask your editor, where does he want the phone? Does he want it by you? Does he want it by him? I'm like, you don't learn these things in film school, I don't
Yeah,
think.
yeah.
And he said, if you do well in this class, I will help you get a job. Um, and I got a job working at Concord Pictures New Horizons,
Oh,
which was
yeah.
by
It was
Roger Corman.
Oh, so it was a Rod. That's right. It was because I knew that there was Corman's production companies, his companies, but there were a couple others that were in the same business in a way, but it wasn't
Right.
Corman. Yeah.
Right. So Canon Pictures was kind of similar.
Canon, that's who I was thinking of.
Um,
Yeah.
but so I got in as a runner, moving film canisters.
Yeah.
Almost, I was having the inner negative Derzu Uzala, the Kurosawa film, rolling around in my car on the
Right.
second day. And so that was in the post-production department, and where Joe Dante
Joe Dante, right. Yeah. We had Joe
started.
on the show a few years ago. Went on to direct Gremlins and just has this incredible career, but a trailer guy, like a trailer guy at heart.
Yes. So yeah, you could open up this giant book which showed you where all the film reels and stuff were, and you could see Joe Dante's notes from years and years before. So in that, you started as a runner, and then you moved up through the department. And if you wanted to direct a movie, you could see how you could do it step by step.
Yeah.
It
And
was
that
really
never appealed to you? Did you ever have designs to direct?
no, not at all. But Roger Corman really was amazing at fostering talent, and there were both, it was highly restricted in the kind of the exploitation elements he could sell his movies. And then
Yeah.
in that, you could do kind of whatever you wanted. And he gave you a lot of freedom.
Yeah.
So, but so I recut features and, supervised elements as I worked my way up the department. And then one of the jobs of that tiny little department, which was dealing with 30 movies a year it was releasing. It was crazy. Was cutting trailers. And so I started cutting trailers there and loved it, and sort of became, the role was the head of the trailer department, but it wasn't like it was really a department. But
It makes sense because and I'm surprised that you weren't able to identify that even before having discovered it at Corman's company. But it makes sense on a lot of levels because a lot of folks just if they're not in the industry, they don't realize that trailers is an actual thing. First of all, but it also makes sense because it sounds like the way you describe it, you intuitively were drawn to something shorter form, the mix of sound and visuals and distilling things and putting things back together in different ways. And so once I could see how once you discovered it, it was like, like it just everything, the doors opened up for you.
yeah, and I think you'll find a lot of people, if they're successful and very happy in their professions, when you talk to them, there's things in their childhood that are very connected.
Yeah.
There's like
Yeah.
these deep, deep roots. So working for Roger Corman was terrific. It really was this great foundation. And also, you weren't cutting a lot of TV spots because most things were being released to home video. So it was trailers, 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 trailers.
Right.
So it was nice to work on these, not starting off on these very, very short form pieces, but slightly longer.
Right. Before we move on, I wanted to tell you about something else that's important. Money. Specifically your money. In all seriousness, I wanted to tell you about my advisor and my friend, George Meza. George runs Meza Wealth Management. And with George, it's not just about money. It's about helping us manage our present and plan for our future. And unlike a lot of other firms out there, George and I actually have a relationship. He knows me, he knows my family, and I know his wonderful family. I also know his firm and the incredible team he's put together, from his chief investment officer to some of the other great people in his office, like Jessica, their head of operations, that are always there to help me and with all aspects of our portfolio. You see, the thing is, I got a lot going on. I guess we all got a lot going on, and I don't have the time to watch our investments all day, every day. And even if I did, I don't have the experience and expertise that George's team collectively has. So we get the entire Meza Wealth Management team, all their expertise and all their integrity. And again, it's based on George knowing me personally, knowing my goals, and even the kind of risk that's appropriate for me to take, which, by the way, could change from one season to the next. And they're on top of all of that. So if you want George Meza and Meza Wealth Management to be on your team, just visit their website, mezawealth.com. That's MEZA wealth.com, www.mezawealth.com. And that will also be in our show notes, so you can check that. Trailer Geeks and Teaser Gods is brought to you by the Golden Trailer Awards. For folks who are just starting to get plugged in, the GTAs is an unconventional ceremony that honors excellence in feature film trailers, teasers, and movie marketing. Or as some folks like to think of it, it's the award ceremony for the short attention span. We all just celebrated the 25th Golden Trailer Awards. So would that be the Silver Golden Trailer Awards? Either way, it was a terrific show. Monica and Evie do such a wonderful job putting it together. Tons of fun, so much awesome work across the board. And mostly, it was just great to be together as a community. So keep an eye out for a number of exciting developments over the next year. Just make sure to stay plugged in at goldentrailer.com for a ton of exciting developments. That's goldentrailer.com. It sounds like by that time you had already developed, even as a kid, that you had developed a taste for the kinds of movies that you were into. Was it? Did you ever find yourself kind of judging the quality of the material, or did you just meet them where they were at in terms of the films? Like, you know what I'm asking? Like,
Yeah.
because listen, I'm a New York theater snob, so when I walk into a theater and it's really bad knockoff musical theater, I'm like, I can't even get through the first act. I'm such a freaking snob, So
Yeah.
were you ever judgy of the material in that way?
Well, of course, one's always judgy. Yeah. Even on big budget movie comes in, and we're going to judge it whether it works or not.
Yeah.
I mean, and there were movies. There was a movie. I was like, I'm not going to work on this movie. It's too sexist.
Oh,
Someone
that's
else
interesting.
to work on this movie, right?
Yeah.
So, but there were, but a female editor was like, I have no problem with this. I'm like, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. There you go.
So there were times like that when, there'd be something. But for the most part, what was fun is you knew you were judging this exploitation elements, but you could also see real talent and people trying things within that. So you'd have, here's a new movie coming in from the Philippines directed by this new director, Carl Franklin. And then you'd watch and you go, oh, this guy's got talent. He's going to really well. And then Lee Corman does Devil in the Blue Dress, and, on and on. And you'd see it'd be a low budget movie, but oh my God, the cinematography is amazing. And it would be Janusz Kaminski or Faden Papamichael and, all these other people. So, within this place, you could see people who were real artists and were just taking their first steps, but still expressing as much artistry as they could within it.
Yeah. And in 30 films a year, you're getting a lot of reps in.
Right. Yes. It was a crazy amount of material. It was pretty exhausting on one level, but also very exciting.
Did you develop any bad habits while you were there?
Well, the one thing is there was on certain kinds of films there was the sort of cookie cutter-ish, element of the style at the time.
Yeah.
But the good thing is you could also, Roger didn't care if you ripped off something high quality. Like you could be working on some low budget sci-fi movie, but if you wanted to cut it like the Alien trailer, you didn't have a problem with that necessarily, as long as it looked like it had the elements that would sell it.
Right. So, did you go directly from Conquer New Horizons to Intralink?
I had a short stint at a place called Dangerous Ideas, run by a person, Marcel Midland, and we cut some stuff for Disney, and other sort of low budget movies, cut a lot more trailers. So did a little work there before moving to Intralink.
How did you get the gig at, Was Seth Gavin still there? Or
Yes.
had Tommy Seth was still there?
That's,
So
that's
he
the story.
probably saw your stuff from Conquer New Horizons and was like, "Oh yeah, I get this." Right?
Right. Right. There was that and some of the stuff from Dangerous Ideas. And so I knew an editor. I really didn't know the trailer company world even yet. And
Yeah.
I knew an editor who had made a list of all the trailer companies. Um, and I spent all this time, like I designed my own business card, and my reels were all carefully done, and I made a stack of reels, and I took his list, and he'd written all these comments, and some of the comments next to the companies were like, crazy, or like, no, don't mention my name, or really. And then next to Intralink, it just said very high class.
Oh
I,
yeah. Yeah.
I
Anthony, yeah, absolutely. High
right.
class all the way. Yeah.
I went, well, I'll try there first, and I
Yeah.
got the job, and so all the 3/4 just sat in a banker box for the next.
So did they start you as an editor, junior editor,
Yeah,
assistant editor?
editor.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's great. That's great. And at that time, so Seth was there. Did you get to was he your first kind of mentor, or did you get to
Yeah.
spend any time with him?
Yeah, yeah. No, I definitely spent some time with him, so he was great. Uh,
Yeah, yeah, because he came up in a very similar path as you. So I would imagine that there was some simpatico there. Who were some of the other folks there, just so I could kind of geek out on the people?
well, there was, well, editor-wise, uh, I was really inspired by this editor, Art Mandrala,
Oh yeah, and
who
Mandrala, like he ended up going over to Ant Farm, and he was like Mike and Barbara's #1 guy for a long time.
right, he did the Unbreakable trailer, which is amazing, and
Yeah.
but, um, I came in, like, on one of my first days, and he's, early on, and he's, like, cutting something. I don't know if it was conspiracy theory or it was something before that, but I watched it and I'm like, this is like one of my absolute favorite trailers of all time, Carlito's Way. And
Oh wow.
he's like, I cut Carlito's Way. And he's like, it only played on the screens for like 2 weeks or something.
Yeah.
And so I was already like, had this, you know, it's great when you have an editor you're sort of in awe of and then you're cutting right next to.
Yeah. Yeah.
Really.
Who are some of the other editors there at that time?
Well, you had Julia Moyer
Julia. Yeah.
there. I'm trying to think of who else was there when I first got there. It's hard because it pretty quickly started growing,
Yeah.
too long after that. So,
Yeah. Good, a really interesting group of people. I love the stories. But Anthony is. We did a tribute to Anthony a few years ago, but it's always. What was your? Did Was he part of the process that when you got hired? Did you interview with him, or did you meet him later on?
I don't remember interviewing with him. I might have, um, but probably not because it's usually pretty memorable when you sit down with him.
I was going to
Uh,
say. So, what was your first impression of Anthony when you first met him?
oh, I mean, he was amazing. A little scary, because he was just such a old school, yeah, the old school madman kind of guy.
Yeah.
Um, but he was so passionate about the work, and we he just loved like really discussing ideas and brainstorming, and which is something we don't really have the time for much anymore. But he was fine with having a 90-minute 2-hour brainstorm session.
Yeah.
The producers would just be dying. It'd be an excruciating misery, just like, when are we going to get out of here on a project? And in those last 15 minutes, sometimes the greatest ideas would come. So we had a really good rapport. And although um, we could be very passionate, we never got into any personal conflicts, but sometimes on, on the Cinderella Man
It's
teaser,
one of my favorite pieces. Yeah. Yeah.
we we had uh I had found all this different dialogue from the movie and sort of stitched it together to create this monologue. And I cut the piece so that you did not know he was a boxer he was just this down and out guy, and he's going to have a second chance, but you don't know what it is, and it would all build up to a reveal of the last shot of him in the ring, and you go, oh, and that way it wouldn't feel like a cliche sports movie. You'd be drawn into this person, and then a reveal. But he didn't want the last shot to be of him as a boxer. And we got into the hugest argument. Like, I'm like, we can send it all. And he's like, I don't want to send it all. We go back and forth and back and forth, back and forth. I think maybe we ended up sending it as an alt.
Oh,
But
wow.
it was just arguing over this single shot. And then the studio gets and goes, we love this piece. They barely touched it. But can we cut an opening about him as a boxer getting knocked out in the ring?
That's funny.
You can literally watch that teaser and you can see there's this whole opening sequence, and then you're like, the monologue starts, and it's like, oh, there's the teaser we originally cut. But it was so funny because that is the life of an editor. You just are, tenaciously focused on some little thing that you put all your passion into, and it's like, yeah, in the big picture, the studio has a much larger view, and what's going to happen to the work? Well,
yeah. Yeah. One of the things I was curious about that project was it was a movie about a man of his time and the struggles that the country was going through. I think it was took place during the Great Depression, and he overcame his own odds, but he was kind of a symbol of hope for the rest of his generation. It wasn't so that was a little bit earlier than our Great Recessions. It was like earlier in the early 2000s. But I was wondering if you ever have a sense of the zeitgeist of the times that we're in right now, and you sense that a movie might be tapping into that zeitgeist, that people were frustrated. We were a few years after 9/11 at that point. We were into Afghanistan, into Iraq, and the country was feeling a certain level of anxiety, not to the degree that they were during the Depression. But are you ever aware of that when you're cutting a piece and wanting to be like to uplift your audiences the way this character, Russell Crowe's character uplifted his generation? Or am I making too much of it?
No, I think your film it's a popular medium, and you're always thinking about the audience.
Hmm.
And the most, and you're thinking about how people are feeling and how a piece is going to make them feel, but that all comes out of the context of the world and people's lives and where things are at the moment. So I think it's really important to not be in a sort of isolated bubble, and to be open to changes in society and be aware of that. So there is this that you're always inputting the global, and then there's the personal. The Cinderella Man teaser, as I was cutting it, I was always thinking about my wife and how much I loved her.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Because there's this big emotional connection with her support of him, even though things are down and out. So you can also feed in yourself into a project.
Yeah, I noticed that
Hopefully that emotion, sort of carries through as well.
There's a couple of those moments between Renee Zellweger's character and Russell Crowe's character, that make it into a couple of, I forget if it was just the teaser and the trailer. I forget, was there a TV spot that I watched too? But there was this one moment that they share, something along the lines of, I'm always behind you, so you could tell that relationship, that bonds that they had, really resonated with you as a person who was putting together a few different pieces.
And that was an interesting project because originally it was a fall release. You watch the teaser, you can see it's for fall. And then Russell Crowe injured himself, and then they pushed the movie and decided to make it a big summer tentpole. And then you get the trailer and you see, oh boy, now we're having to pivot and try to make it more of a summer movie, which it was not.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It still holds up, man. Every time I catch it, on TV, I'll stop and watch the thing. So, but yeah, it brought back, like, I remember how I felt when it was one of those trailers that I remember seeing in the theater. And you know how I don't know if you're like me, but like when I go to the theater, you're like trailer, 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 and I love them all. Like I make sure I always get there way early. I don't want to miss a single trailer. But then there are some trailers where you're like, oh yeah, I got to see this one. you know? So it definitely, I remember it resonating back then. One of the things I was curious about was how you, I'm sure that you had to ad- adapt or learn going into Intralink. Like how much of a learning curve did you have there? And how, like how did you learn it? Like who was Seth spending a lot of time with you, and Tommy when he got there spending a lot of time with you, or how did that evolution take place?
Yeah, yeah, there were definitely, different mentors and people that helped. Uh, I had also There were certain kinds of things I had never cut before. The first project they gave me was like a 6 or 7-minute long AFM piece for this terrible movie, Bad Day on the Block, and I never cut anything that long before, so I cut it all like a trailer. Like, I worked so hard, everything was intercut, everything they looked at and they're like, "Oh, wow." It was good because it impressed them, like, there was so much work put into it, but it was also usually these kinds of things you, like, play out some more moments, and I'm like, "Oh, oh, that's what you do, okay."
Right. I noticed like the Terminator Salvation piece, that was a 4-minute piece and the
Yeah,
extended trailer, and that felt different. Like I had to get into a different rhythm when I was watching that. So I guess you applied those lessons to other longer pieces that you did.
right. Yeah,
That
I have not cut longer pieces, and I hadn't cut a lot of TV spots. Some, but not a lot, so
so did you make a point of going into Art Mandralo's Bay or Julia's Bay and seeing like how they're starting and what's inspiring them to give them some like what were some of the things like the arrows that you put in your quiver to or that you added once you got there? How did you do all that?
yeah, I feel like learning how to tell more complex stories and do it in an artful way was, um, something that I really could see in those editors' work. Um, that helped, and, even beyond style. I was already very music driven, and that I had control over, but learning how to tell story, especially when it's really tricky,
Yeah, yeah.
important to learn.
I noticed that there are some movies that you worked on that are like more character driven, story driven. Do you have a different approach to movies like that? Um, not to say that it's formulaic, but it almost seems like if it's a high concept movie, what's the movie I'm thinking of now? The Forgotten, real high concept movie. It seems like you have a lot of work to do so that in the first part of the trailer, so that the viewer is like, okay, now I know what I'm watching, and now and then like whether it's a third of the way through or halfway through, now you could take us on the ride of the movie.
Right.
Is there a certain approach, or like that's one? The Forgotten was one, but another one was People Like Us, very story driven, character driven. Um, do you feel more of an obligation to sort of take care of that business, of telling us what the hell is going on in the first part of the trailer? Or is it more kind of you're going by feel and and then that repartee that you have with the client, you figure it out over time over, versions 1 through whatever, 60.
Well, you want people to feel connected to what they're watching, to get pulled in, to lean in, and depending on what the movie is, that is you do it in different ways.
Yeah.
So, it might be, you know, it might be a horror film where you just want it to feel scary or mysterious at front and characters not important. Or you want it to feel exciting and big and scopy, and stylish, and that's what the movie's strengths are, and so then you want to start with some sense of that. If the strengths of the movie and what are gonna draw people into it are character, then you need to slow down and make people feel connected to the character.
Yeah.
So, what the film is really and what its strengths are and what its audience is, you need to adjust your style and approach to cutting too. Um, so if you're doing horror or a comedy, I might work on you can work on little sections almost, like, oh, here's this joke I can work on, and here's a scare, and here's or something where you might work on just like a style open or something you're want to grab people's attention with some unexplained non-linear opening that's going to hook people, and then you're going to be like, don't worry, we're going to explain it later.
Right, right.
So with that, I'm not looking at the story structure as the hook to begin with. But if something is where the character is really important, or like The Forgotten, you need to feel connected to this person, and that she has a kid and she has this ordinary life. You need to know all that and feel invested, so that when suddenly her reality is broken and everyone is, seems to be gaslighting her, you're in her head. And then
Right.
when you're in her head and she's freaking out and you're in this more of a thriller or horror film, then you can be really nonlinear and abstract, and you don't have to explain anything because you're like, yeah, you have to pay your money to figure out what the hell's going on, just the way she's trying to figure out what's going on.
Yeah, and you could grab moments for a different arc, tension that you're building up, or just a different emotional arc, But I felt like those two films definitely came to mind in terms of like information that we needed up front. People like us, because you got me immediately to care about the characters, and it's a really sweet story, and I was immediately rooting for these characters. So you got a lot of that. So do you for the do you always get it from the film itself, or do you realize when you're watching the film, because it sounds like you're taking, obviously you have to take a certain essence of the film, but it also sounds like you're keeping the audience in very much front of mind, and how this is going to resonate with those, with the audience of the trailer, not necessarily the movie, but the audience of the trailer. So are there times when you're like, oh yeah, the movie, we got to sell something different, because the movie, whether it's a good, bad, or in between, we can't sell this movie in a trailer. Are you ever torn that way, and end up having to sell something kind of different than what the tone or the essence of the actual movie is?
Oh, sure. Sometimes you have to um uh craft something where you've imposed what will make the movie exciting and hook people. I mean, this is why we use songs
Yeah.
sometimes, so that you're bringing in some kind of uh, something that people resonate with and they like, and it packages the film in a way that elevates it. Um,
The one
and then
that
there's
immediately comes to mind in terms of the song, I loved the movie. I loved the Out of the Furnace. I love that film, but the trailer, I what I remember feeling watching that film, the trailer is it's a good trailer. Or it was the trailer or the teaser?
trailer.
You were using the Heart of Gold track, that different one, not the Neil Young one, but that different treatment of it. And I was like, huh, this is a really good trailer, and I love this movie, but the vibe that I remember getting from that movie was a different vibe. You know what I mean? Is that one of the examples that you were thinking of?
Right. It's a movie that its plot is thriller, but its tone is sort of melancholy
Melancholy, that's
and
exactly
Enter
the
by
word I
the
was
Sea.
thinking of. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but obviously the studio wants to lean more towards thriller.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, and you definitely
but
did that, man. You like lit
right,
I thought I was gonna go in and watch it in action, kind of like fisticuffs, and
right,
car chases and whatever. So I was like, "Oh, okay. This is definitely one way to do it."
right. You need to make an arc because uh you have to feel like it's not, you haven't imposed the thriller element so strongly that it's not believable.
Yeah.
So, um, you know, Heart of Gold is a melancholy song at heart, but it's also got some kind of pop cultural connection, which is helpful.
Yeah.
And then you build on that augment wise to get more thrillery. So you try to you try to make that arc work where you feel naturalistic to the film, but you can start pushing it closer to what the studio wants.
Yeah. Yeah.
And sometimes the studio wants you to push really hard and it's can feel awkward and you're like,
Yeah. Yeah, it's
um,
like, I don't know, it's kinda like, listen, I'm 5'7" on a good day when the wind's blowing right, but the studio wants to sell me as a 6'2", like, like, it's just at a certain point, you're stretching it a little bit too much. But I
right.
like I said, I love that movie. I mean, maybe I'm just a sucker for Cooper movies, especially his collaborations with, Christian Bale. But you're right, it's a melancholy character study, these relationships, and those are the impressions that I took away from that film now, having been however many years ago it was that I saw it. But then I watched the trailer. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. That's an interesting take of what they're selling, and it was good on its own merits. The trailer was really good. I was also
That's a movie where every time I had to watch the scene on the bridge in that movie,
yeah.
I would be crying in my bay.
Oh God.
One of the great scenes and one of the great Christian Bale scenes.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, when you've worked on a few Christopher Nolan movies, when you get a Batman Begins, or I mean, I guess wait, Batman Begins comes after Dark Knight, right? Um,
No, actually the first trailer I cut for him was Insomnia,
oh,
with Robin Williams and yeah, that I cut that trailer. That was a funny trailer because I cut the trailer, studio loved it, everyone loved it, and then at the very end, and I'm not sure where this word came down, but they're like, maybe it was the production studio or someone was like, they want you to add narration into it. And I was
oh,
like, okay, what isn't explained well in it? They're like, no, they think it's all clear. They just feel like they'd be more comfortable if there was narration in it. And I'm like, where do they want it to be or what do they want to say? They don't know. Just figure it out and put in some narration. So
oh
literally
man,
just took the trailer, just open it up and just stuck narration in it, even though everyone agreed it completely worked without it. You could just feel you were around a period where narration was finally going, thankfully going away. And it
yeah.
was like the last gasp. It was just like, yes, we've all learned to cut trailers now with no narration. And yet there were still a few people out there who were holding on to it. Um,
I was going to ask you about that actually because I noticed that some of the earlier pieces. I didn't realize this, but there must have been a time when the heavy narration, all through the late 80s and well into the 90s, a lot of VO, right? But then there was this time when we were sort of discovering that, great visual, and part of it was just some of the movies that were being made, great visuals and sound and composition of music could take you through an entire piece on its own merits, right? But there was kind of maybe this transition period where I thought, are we using dialogue now to do what VO was doing, 5, 10 years prior to that? Because some of the earlier pieces that I was looking at, it felt like I didn't realize it, but it felt like dialogue heavy in order to get us through what VO is doing. You know what? Does that make sense, or am I? Um,
yes, I
yeah,
think there was. I think there was a period where trailers were structured a little similarly to how they were, but using dialogue. Um, Now, well, and then I think things transitioned to where even playing out scenes to establish things became even used a little bit more,
mm,
and there were more elegant ways to use the dialogue
yeah,
instead of sometimes even like cutting it up and sort of creating dialogue to tell your story. Weirdly, I think I see some trailers now, and I think kind of regressed in a strange way with uh, AI, ADR, and I think some movies where they like to have a lot of characters explaining what's going on because it's really efficient. A lot of trailers now where I'm like, ooh, I can tell that's not from the movie. Or you can see that they fake synced someone saying something in order to get a plot point across.
Yeah.
And I think that can become its own crutch where you can just kind of feel the artificial hand of something where it doesn't quite feel like naturalistic dialogue. But but then there's other ways you can impose structure. I've there's things where people are using poems and found audio. So I think there's also experimentation going on at the moment with finding new and exciting ways to bring something from outside the movie and creating structure and story and theme with it.
So what you're saying is Bill Neal is an above average editor?
My God, it's amazing, amazing, and
Amazing, right?
no one works harder and produces more. It's
Oh man.
pretty astonishing.
We love us some Bill Neal. So you just reminded me, by the way, when you said AI, not AI as in AI, but like AI the movie. I was wondering, first of all, what's it like working on any Spielberg movie, but that one in particular, when what you were given from the actual movie was so sparse. Like, do you know? Like, are you? Were you confident at that point in your development as a creative in developing something that was completely, like, almost completely impressionistic?
That was a really exciting movie to work on because uh, that was with Joel Wayne, who was just the best. I mean, he could be uh, he could be frightening. You'd go in, show him something, and sometimes he'd be in the middle of watching, and be like, "No, no, no, get rid of schmutz, get rid of those schmutz, no, no,
Get
no."
rid of the schmutz. That's great.
And then you'd leave with Anthony, and we're like, "What do we do now?" And he's like, "I don't know. Let's just do something more different."
Yeah.
And then he would watch something, and he'd be like, you'd see him shake his head, and he'd go like, "I'm going to sell the shit out of this cut. I'm the only person in this industry who'll finish something version one." Um,
That's great.
so on the fun thing on AI was that it was Spielberg making a Kubrick script. So he really, I think, wanted to honor a kind of Kubrickian approach initially to the marketing, and he knew it was really different so that we could cut these sort of big thematic kind of pieces. Um, Joel Wayne originally had an idea that that we would finish nothing but 60-second TV spots, and that it wouldn't be that they would be super dense 60s, but that we would have more air in them than normal TV spots would have. Like,
Mm.
a lot of those didn't finish. The studio, people got nervous and things went back and got a little more commercial by the end, but some really great stuff did get finished. But you could experiment and be different and have that kind of Kubrick meets Spielberg strange mix going on.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's interesting. I remember that campaign included, I think it was Jark van Slaus when he was a motion graphic designer. I want to say he was a Kaleidoscope at the time, but he created that piece where it's a graphic piece that goes into the fingerprint, and then you see that it's like a digital kind of version of the. It was a very it made a strong impression. There's a lot of experimentation that happened with that movie that was just really artful, you know?
yeah, and Intralink had also done the poster on it, which was kind of an iconic look with the boy
The
walking out
boy
of
walking out of yeah.
and that was always fun working at Intralink, is because you were surrounded by the print department and someone who ran it who was very, you know, print graphics kind of oriented. So Anthony would be like, "Letter space that temp graphic,"
That's awesome. That's great. So what was it like working on The Batman Begins and The Dark? Like, what was it like working on those movies?
It was interesting. Batman Begins teaser. Well, one, that teaser I think was really important because the previous film in the franchise had been Catwoman. So they really needed to like clean the slate. It wasn't like in a teaser you needed to sell the movie as much as just demolish expectations in a way.
Yeah.
I I think people don't often think of. I think there were a lot more teasers used to be cut, and sometimes I think of teasers as they're not selling the movie necessarily. They're just laying this important foundation where people are like, huh, oh, I'm curious now what's going to happen next.
Yeah.
Um, so Kazadi Kawatamba had cut a teaser for it that had died at the last minute. I think,
Oh, he must have been a young editor at the time.
yeah, I think one of the problems was there were like CGI bats in it, and Christopher Nolan said they look like birds. I don't know. I don't remember the details, but
Yeah.
it went down. So they thought the teaser was kind of dead, but they were like, why don't you just go in over the weekend and try cutting something? And it had very limited footage in classic Nolan fashion. Insomnia, we had a feature, but Batman Begins, they hadn't even shot.
Oh, wow.
They were still kind of early, and most of the footage was just of the sort of Bhutan section. So I was cutting this teaser using a really strange piece of music I'd always wanted to use by Glenn Branca. But I knew it needed to have a climax. There's this monologue and it needs a climax, but we have like no footage of Batman in the costume.
Yeah.
So I'm there on a Sunday, but online, there's like one image online of Batman in his costume. So I download it, take it into Photoshop, and I make a kind of a dark version of this shot and a slightly brighter one. And I just bring it in and I just do this flash cut to this still of Christian Bale and the outfit to create some kind of climax. And
Yeah.
so I tell everyone, look, this is a placeholder. He'll, if he likes this idea, Christopher Nolan will, just give us a shot. So you can get this just quick flash and you're like, oh, it's him in the costume. Teaser goes over, people are loving it. I'm like, remind people, we just have this like stills, this teaser. Like, can we get footage in it? People are loving it. It's all getting signed off on. It's going to go to the mix. Are we ever going to get the? No, it finishes and they just reproduced. So if you go and watch that teaser, there's literally just still frames of a
Wow.
photograph at the end.
That's funny.
Really funny.
That's crazy that you're like, no, I'm just using this as, this isn't the thing. They're like,
right.
no, this is the thing.
It's like a classic problem with temp graphics where you're constantly like, these are temp graphics. We really should get graphics involved. And they're like, yeah, we don't want to pay yet. We'll get to that. And then they're like, we've locked the cut. What are we doing with the graphics? Oh, I guess we'll have graphics reproduce the temp graphics. And you're like, oh.
Yeah. What about when you get a project where I was thinking of The Social Network, and did you work on any trailers for that movie?
I didn't. I actually was basically had an infant at the time and was basically just enjoying eternity time off.
Yeah.
Wasn't planning on going back to work. And then Ignition called me and they're like, you don't want to work on TV spots for The Social Network? And I'm like, of course I do.
Yeah.
So that's actually how I ended up at Ignition, was literally they lured me over with that project.
Wait, Meisner, Chad Meisner worked on it. He was at Woolen when he did the trailer, right? Or I always forget if it's a teaser or the trailer, but it's like one of the seminal pieces of the last 25 years of trailer making, if not all time. Were you aware? Did you have a sense of the gravity of like the kind of transcendent nature of the piece that he created, that Chad finished?
Yeah.
Because the TVs that you made didn't necessarily pick up where he left off.
No, because you have to remember there was that piece, and then there was the Kanye West kind of trailer that came,
which was a totally different take than that Rolling Stones thing that they did, right?
Take. So
Or wait, did I get that right? Rolling Stones? It was
no,
Rolling
I was
Stones.
with Kanye West. I'm pretty sure.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, I'm mixing.
Um,
I'm getting the ingredients, but I'm not getting them all, right.
yeah. Um, so I think that is an example of a teaser. That teaser is amazing.
Yeah,
It gets your attention. Does it sell the story? No, not yet.
not
Not
yet.
yet. Not quite yet.
Right.
But it does all this huge, lifting of attention. Um, and then you've gotten a lot of people want to see the movie from that. But then you're like, we need to expand out, and then bring in you bring in this Kanye West,
Yeah. Yeah.
power. You create this uh expanded commercial quality of it, which is kind of what we were doing in the TV spots. So you want to stay true to the movie, and you have to stay true to the movie with Dave Fincher because he's signing off on everything.
Did you ever get
So
to spend time directly with Fincher?
no, you just get you get a list, and it will just say rejected, rejected, accepted, rejected.
Oh, wow.
So it's very clear.
How would
And anything approved by him that's not kept by Woolen is a huge victory. So
And then on the film side and commercial side, it's Angus Wall, right? Angus Wall is his longtime editor. Am I getting that right?
I think that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Did you get any feedback from Angus? Was he pitching in on,
No, no, I was not deep in it enough uh, to connect with him. So it was there's some filmmakers that get more involved than others, but he
yeah.
was like sitting in the bay.
One
Um,
of the other projects that I was really enamored with that I have to go watch some episodes of this show was Animals.
oh yes.
How much in the spirit, like because I haven't seen the show, I'm like, now I got to go see the show. How much in the spirit of it, like it felt to me like, first of all, like comedy at the highest level, but comedy if you were in a mosh pit at like a metal punk show. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know how to describe it. Like an animated city animals. I don't know how to describe it, but were you getting all of that from the show itself, or were you creating this whole other, thing?
Well, as a an old punk rocker and someone who likes experimental music and so on, I mean, as a music fan, I'm always excited if I can put in music that I would like. Oh, I get to
Yeah.
use this, and so being able to use a band like Death Grips on Animals was just so exciting.
Yeah.
Uh, and yeah, you get this kind of anarchic quality to the show, and then you get this piece of music where you can just go completely bonkers with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't cut a lot of comedy, but that's the kind of show that's right up my alley.
So I didn't realize that you don't do a lot of comedy, but then you watch a recent piece like the Fly Me to the Moon piece. I'm like, oh, Robert can do comedy. Do you have an intuitive sense of comedic timing, or does that come more from your understanding of the timing of music, or is it kind of the same thing?
I think it is the sort of the same thing. I mean, you feel the when you're getting a music cut right,
Yeah,
you might be stopping down for action or a rhythmic beat or whatever, but you can feel what is the right place for, anticipation, the moment that something hits and lands with you, and then what feels right for the break after it. This whole tension and release, which you get in anything,
yeah,
you you have the same feeling for in comedy, and of course, comedy and horror are so very similar in certain kinds of ways. Uh,
we've heard that a few times before. That I guess the tension and release thing. It's like the setup and the boom boom. But it's not as simple as that. I really think that there's something. there's something about timing that you either have it or you don't, you know?
Yes, it's very hard. You certainly can't teach timing very well. It's hard,
Yeah.
um, to sit there and go, "Try that with 6 more frames on this,"
Yeah.
before the person says the line after the stop down.
Right, right. That's hard because I know even in my own like, I don't do nearly what you do, obviously, but just in the audio, in editing audio, when I'm putting together something, I know it when I hear it, but then you have to do the actual work of, like, moving it over 2 clicks, or whatever, and it's like, "Oh, am I still hearing it? Am I holding on to that actual the beat of it, the rhythm of it, or am I losing it now that I have to try it 6, 7, 8 different times to sometimes I'm afraid that I'm losing that internal sense of what is right, in the actual mechanics of it. Does that make sense?
If you're thinking about it too much, you
Yeah,
can get lost in it.
yeah.
So, it can be dangerous to constantly replay something and you're like, "Oh, let me a little more. No, maybe a little less, maybe a little more." Like, "No, move on, go somewhere else and come back."
That makes
Because
sense. Yeah.
you have lost the thread at this point.
Right, right, right.
You should be able to watch and go, "And there, that feels right."
Yeah,
Uh,
or sometimes get another editor to come into your band like, "Hey, are you feeling this?"
Absolutely. Yes, or show it 2 or 3 different ways to someone.
Yeah,
Um, the feeling is the key to what we do. I mean, you ultimately that is the single most important thing. It's creating a feeling in the audience.
oh, man, and you
Feeling
do
is,
it.
"I wanna pay money to go see this."
Yeah, you do it again and again.
It's an unresolved feeling, which is what's so interesting in what we do. We're
It's amazing. Is it something that you want to feel, or are you thinking specifically about the audience? Like, because I get that. Almost every single piece that I watch, I'm like, "Oh, I'm going on an emotional journey right now." Whether it's the comedy, the more moody pieces, like just everything. So is it something you're conscious of and trying to create something so that you feel it, or are you thinking more in terms of the audience and so that they can feel it, or a combination of both, I guess?
you're uh, the objective is created by thinking of the audience. Like, I wanna make this feeling because this is what I wanna do for the audience.
Mhm.
And then once you know that's the directive, then you are, as an audience member, trying to get the emotional reaction within yourself.
Yeah.
And else that you can pull into the bay and your producers and all these other people, obviously. But um, you're not, if you're trying to sense the emotional reaction of the audience while watching it, well, you're not in an emotionally open state. You're just thinking about how they're going to respond to it. You want to be able to feel it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but what you want to feel, how you might want to make it feel, those may be based on specific objectives for an audience.
Yeah.
Uh,
One other project I wanted to ask you about was the Harder They Fall.
uh,
Um, that that was such a stylized film. Um, so were you more trying to pay tribute to what the film was? It's like this a ballet of violence and just coolness, and it's so the film is so unique in that way, like, even to the way the characters are moving, and, so were you more trying to pay tribute in 2.5 minutes to what the film is, or creating something different or an extension? Like, how do you approach a movie like that?
it was a little tricky because it was cut with dailies, so we didn't really have a cut of the movie at all to completely get a sense of it.
I woulda had no idea, by the way, because you
Yep.
get some scenes in there, you get some, like, quick, like, takes of what some of the characters are saying that really bring a couple of things together. So I would never have known that you didn't have a lot to work with.
Yeah, I mean, we had a fair amount to work with, but it was not cut into scenes. But luckily we had the scripts which called out music, and we got some of the music that was composed for it.
Yeah.
Um, so you could and knowing that the director is you know, is a musician and it's, produced by Jay-Z, and you have to be really true to what the musical iconography of this film is going to be. So it was really important going through the script, um, which is why, like, I saw in a different scene, but I saw this Fela Kuti cue was called out. I'm like, oh my God, I know exactly how to use this. I'm going to take that music and put it in this train sequence and so on.
Yeah.
Um, but it was, but you could see where it was going, what it was going for, this combination of its kind of little bit of spaghetti western and had these different kind of stylized elements. But it was interesting. Once we got a feature in, I was like surprised at how dramatically moving some of it was that I did not get from the script or going through dailies. And sometimes you can be working off dailies, be off on what a movie is, or you
Mm.
read the script. I have a whole thing where I hate to read a script before I see any footage. Like, I will
Really?
begin and try not to, if at all possible. I'm like, please, please, just let me see any footage before I start reading the script. Like, I need to feel the tone of the movie. I read the script and I'm imagining it all in my head, and I can get off base
Okay.
and be starting to guess what the movie's style and tone, or even what the main themes are. It's can be a problem. And you start thinking that, oh, these are the lines that are going to be great, and starting to cut them in your head. No, that's those lines are going to be throwaways, the way the director is going to approach it.
Yeah, yeah, because you
Um,
could breathe an entirely different life into the words on the page than what the director ultimately brings to life. That makes sense. That makes a ton of sense, and then it wouldn't serve the final product of what the filmmaker creates. That makes a ton of sense.
right. And directors will change tacks. I mean, I worked on Jarhead, and it was initially a very sarcastic black humor movie, and then it started to change tone as the feature was being cut, and it
Yeah, yeah.
different than it was originally.
That's interesting. I'm trying to imagine that was Sam Mendes, right? The Sam Mendes movie? Yeah. I'm trying to imagine a dark comedy, a Sam Mendes dark comedy. Like, that's not what I get. That's interesting. I never thought of that. All right. So I could do this all day because there's so much work to dive into, but I'm really appreciative that you indulged me on a few of the projects that we talked about. Um, I also got to know, like, oh, you mentioned Rumblefish, seeing that trailer when you were a kid and it having a real impact on you. When you think about other trailers, other people's trailers and teasers throughout time, whether it's now or 30 years ago, what's some of what do you have a favorite trailer, or what are some of them?
Well, everyone always mentions the Alien trailer,
Alien, of course,
of
yeah,
course, because it's got the copy line and has a special shoot element, and it's
yeah,
got the title graphic and the sound design and the visual storytelling, and um uh and it's exciting to see something like that, which has all these stylistic elements, um and structured imposed on it,
yeah,
right? But then there's a trailer like the Moonlight trailer, which is just a perfect subtle distillation of a film, where it just feels very naturalistic. So um I mean, I'll call out a trailer that probably no one has seen. I'll be different.
okay,
Um uh there is a completely hyper arty teaser, that I kind of love. It probably doesn't really sell the movie, although it did kind of for me, because I was like, "What is this movie?" But there's a teaser for this film, Madeline's Madeline, which is just a cool teaser, unlike any you'll probably see. So I'm just
all
gonna
right.
call that out to make people go and watch it.
I was gonna say, if you could do me a favor, send me a link if you could find it on YouTube or whatever, because I want to include it in the show notes.
Yeah, yeah.
Because inevitably I'll find something and it's like, oh no, not that one, that one, So
Yeah.
yeah,
It's
so send me a link.
yeah, that's something I saw. I was like, "Oh, wow, this is so different." It was
Okay. That's cool. That's cool. Yeah. Well, safe to say, 100 and whatever episodes in, nobody has mentioned Madeline's Madeline. So now, if you're talking to a kid who's just now coming into Buddha Jones, great company, great agency, so many great people over there. Just either, just starting their career, or maybe, a kid who loves trailers and is thinking about getting into the industry. What are some of the things that worked for you in order to continue to advance in not just in your career, but evolve as a creative? What are some of the things that you tell that kid that's gonna, do well for him or her or them?
I think that it's important, not to get into a groove of always approaching things the same way, so that, um, a lot of people, it's always like, "I wanna cut the whole music bed first, and then I'm gonna put the dialogue on it," and, like, yes, sometimes you should approach it that way. Sometimes maybe you should, structure your dialogue, in a rhythmic way, and then find music that feels like it complements that. Maybe you should just be working on story before tone, or sometimes uh, you're feeling behind and you just jump in and cut the end first and don't worry about the beginning. Um, Whereas some people are like, oh, I always have to cut in a linear fashion. So I think it's important to not get caught up into always looking for the same thing and approaching working the same way.
That makes a lot of sense because I realize that there are some folks who have an entry point that helps them, get from blank timeline to at least is getting something up there to start with. But I noticed that there's so much that's unexpected that when you see it in your work that like, "Oh, that really works." One of them, I don't even know if it's in the movie, but, I think it was in the Book of Eli where there's the throwing of a spear or something like that, and it's sort of it goes slow in the p in your piece, and there's silence with it, as opposed to, like and the silence is noticeable because there's a lot of action on both sides of that shot, but I was like, "Oh, I wasn't expecting that." Like, just that following that spear or whatever it was, and that moment of silence, it's like, I don't know, it's not you're talking about the way you enter into a piece and get your inspiration and how you go about the process, but, like, I think that's all throughout. It's like it's almost like you discover things that you weren't expecting throughout. So, is that am I remembering that correctly?
Yeah, I was on the mix stage and the mixer turned and went, "Are we really gonna go to complete silence?" And I was like, "Yes." And he goes, "Cool."
That's awesome.
But
That's
he
awesome.
wanted to make sure we were gonna do it because he was afraid people would think there'd been a big audio dropout, right? Because
Yeah,
it's just dead silence.
yeah.
Um, but,
That seems like more of a mindset though um, of like keeping an openness to the possibilities throughout the process, right?
right, and I think one exciting thing is, we now have the whole world of cutting digital spots, which are really a different way of thinking about things. And uh, I think it's a lot of like seasoned editors are like, oh, I don't want to cut anything digital, and you're like, hey, this is a way to freshen up how you approach things. Like you'll do things tonally completely different from what the movie is, to create something that's more meme like. So it's yes, and I think that I also, constantly feeding your brain with different kind of artistic material that will just sit in your unconscious and will affect what you do. You don't want to just be stuck in trailer land all the time. You should be listening to lots of kinds of music and, trying to stay current with what people are listening to and, um, you know, and don't just watch movies at home, watch them with an audience. I think there's a lot of things that are important to keep yourself fresh.
Yeah, yeah. No, it does make a difference. Last weekend I went to see, or was it the weekend before? I went to see The Apprentice.
Uh-huh.
Um, and that's one that you would think it's like a kind of a biopic-ish. Um, you'd think that, oh, I can watch that one in my living room. But it was interesting watching that particular one at this particular time with other people in the theater,
Yeah.
because we were having the same like gasp like moments at some of what was happening in the movie, and it's cool to experience that with others, literally from my neighborhood. So yeah, to your point, and now like the way I was going to ask you about that the way campaigns are evolving, obviously, TV campaigns, it's not that TV campaigns are going the way of the dodo bird, but it's not to the extent, that even a fraction of the extent of what was happening as recently as 10 years ago. But the volume on campaigns, you still have to create content, if not even more so. It's just different kinds of content than these 15s and 30s that were so pervasive. So I guess that kind of ties into who you are at your roots, like that kid that was making collages, because you have to be inspired by different sounds and composition and putting together different sounds as well as like imagery. So, you can be doing it by looking through a graphic novel or walking through LACMA, I guess,
Right.
and it all can help the kinds of creative content that's being created as part of campaigns now. It all serves your purposes if you're open to it, right?
Absolutely. I think that um, you have to. A lot of our job is um, it can you can get very hyper focused in what we do. We can work, can work long hours and be constantly imposing our creative will on all this material and trying to do it as fast as possible. So you want to get into a quick groove and just quickly get sucked into doing the same thing. But you need to stay really open and be a kind of uh, be an audience member yourself to the world of creativity to feed you.
Yeah.
And but yes, with um, and the exciting thing is when you're doing like a digital campaign on something, um, you're not having to cut something necessarily four quadrant, right? It can be something for a very specific audience. So you that can create a lot of different skills on how to approach something.
Yeah. Yeah. That's interesting. I remember this is a few years ago now, but I think it was a Vulture article that was talking about the way Netflix was creating like micro spots. And it wasn't the four quadrants. It was literally like dozens of buckets, I think they referred to them as, and really micro targeting some of the stuff that they were trying to launch titles or, so it's just a different way to think about campaigns. You still need to do kind of the general stuff, the general audience stuff, but then you can really target, to your point, depending on what platform you're on and what kind of content resonates on that particular platform. So really cool stuff. Um, did you have any questions for me?
Uh, what have you noticed stylistically with trailers and how they've do you feel like that they've been changing recently or
It's always interesting watching the arc of a career because I look at a piece kind of like what you were creating in the early 2000s. And it's funny because I could feel that you were helping to move the way we could do this thing forward. But inevitably, there was a piece or two that was still, we talked about it before with as VO was transitioning into dialogue and dialogue was doing what VO was doing. But you were already introducing pieces that were like, no, 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 we could do this with sound and visuals, with music and visuals. And we could, you know, so I think that's only going further, and I think that there are contributors now that have influences by art forms that I'm unfamiliar with. One of my kids is really into it's called dubstep, a certain kind of DJing.
Mhm.
That's an art form in and of itself. So I'm seeing that I'm always sort of kind of blown away when I see that enter into our pop culture creative content like trailers. So yeah, that's the main thing is how is there a certain amount of articulation, when it comes to script and actors' verbal performances, or maybe is there a renaissance of VO? Like, I'm curious to see if that enters back in, or are we going to um, drop some of that altogether in favor of all visuals and all music and all like, so I don't know if speaking of being articulate, I don't know if I'm being articulate right now, but I'm just seeing that trajectory, and more pieces are relying on something that I could watch here in Southern California, or somebody from a different culture altogether, from another part of the world that speaks a completely different language, can watch exactly the same piece and appreciate it because it is just the visuals, not in a particular language. I'm seeing more and more of those pieces, but at the same time, like I said, I'm still curious to see, is like a pendulum that's going to swing back a little in the other way. So I don't know. What do you think?
I'm not sure. I mean, I'm really curious whether um, we will see uh, whether as streaming becomes more powerful, whether there'll be more micro targeting of marketing, digitally and so on, and that those departments will have sort of more power as the kind of um, uh, or will be more integrated into the sort of traditional marketing. I don't know. It'll
Yeah.
be interesting to see.
If I had my druthers, I would have more work that appeals to what is his name? Um, oh gosh, he's an incredible thinker. Had one of the most viewed TED Talks of all time. He talks about lower rung thinking and higher rung thinking. And the lower rung thinking is that part of us that's been, part of the human experience for tens of thousands of years, where it's like, oh, you know, big animal, I must kill or I must run, person from other clan, I must kill or I must, have sex, so that, but so there's a lot of that's still in us. That's low, but it's lower rung thinking. But then, you get Plato talking to Socrates, and Aristotle talking uh, to Socrates. Like, you get the higher rung thinking of like asking questions and being curious, and um, not engaging with people in order to do the intellectual version of fighting or running, fight or flight kind of a thing, but to have an inquisitiveness about it, and learning something, and experiencing something transcendent together. So I'm always rooting for that higher rung, those higher rung experiences, that higher rung thinking. But that's more of my pet peeve, more so than an observation. I just, but I do see that so much of content right now, I guess they know what sells, whether we're talking about trailers that has to resonate with people's base instincts to connect right away, or whether it's the news content that a lot of people are consuming. They know that fear and anger and hate sells it kind of like crack, as opposed to our better angels, if you will. But that's my pet peeve, I guess. So, um, we covered a lot, man. So before we go, how can folks find some of your work online, or find more about Buddha Jones, a wonderful shop you've been with, and all the great work that you're doing?
Oh, I've not updated my reel in forever, so my work just floats around. I guess I should probably work harder on
That's
my
okay. That's
public
okay.
face. Of
Yeah.
course, a classic marketing person who doesn't know how to market themselves. Um,
Cobbler's kids have no shoes.
it's true, true. Architects are always in unfinished homes.
Yeah.
Um, but but yes, working at Buddha Jones, and you'll see some of my work up there.
Some great work over there, by the way. I like, and a great collection of souls right now. Like, Furman is still there, and you're there, and Bill, of course, and one of I love freaking Archer. I just love that dude, and Pickle is like, just so many
Yeah,
people over there that I just love them personally, as well as obviously their work. So quite a collection of quite a team over there. So
yeah.
shout out to those guys. Robert, this was really terrific, man. I appreciate you taking the time.
Well, thanks for having me. It was a blast.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And that brings us to the end of this best of episode of Trailer Geeks and Teaser Gods. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed the conversation, please rate and review us wherever you get your podcasts. It really does help us reach more listeners, so folks who love trailers, movie posters, and digital campaigns and are inspired by all the wonderful folks who create all this brilliant work can learn more about all of it. You can follow me on all the socials at Corey S. Nathan. That's at Corey, S as in Sam, Nathan, at Corey S. Nathan. And be sure to check out our incredible sponsors, the Golden Trailer Awards and Mesa Wealth Management. We're deeply grateful to them for helping us keep the lights on and all these conversations going. Thanks again for joining us. Now go do some inspired work.